Hello, I'm Bryan Peterson, the host of our story, The State of the Arts, the show that takes you behind the scenes of many of our greatest local entertainment, featuring performing artists and visual artists from many walks of life. And tonight, here in the Fairmont Film Society, in our very own Moonlight Cabaret, we have guest artists Bradley Greenwald and Jason Enqquist starring two of Fairmont's very own, what shall I say, boys who grew up to be big stars in their own right. First, I'd like to ask Jay, tell us a little bit about having grown up in Fairmont and then what happened in your life.
Well, here I was playing my little fingers off. And I used to play in Mrs. McEwen's voice studio. She lived over off of Woodland Avenue, and she said, "You've got to select a college." This is at about the 8th grade. I said, "You've got to be kidding." "No, it's time to start looking." So I ended up at St. Olaf, and then one thing led to another, and I moved to Minneapolis, and then all of a sudden a job in Greenwich, Connecticut opened, and that's how I moved to Connecticut.
Wasn't there a little Yale University involved with that?
That was later. Yeah, I did my graduate studies at Yale, but I first moved to Greenwich, Connecticut for a job. Believe it or not, for the money.
Jay, can you tell us a little bit about your association with the incredible Betty Kurtz of Fairmont?
My first organ teacher, Betty Lou Nelson Stone Porter Kurtz Shear. Who can forget that woman? No one. And I remember the day well. I was swimming in the yacht club pool, and my mother approached Betty. Now, you know, she was some lady. So this was with trepidation and nervousness, and asked if her lowly, humble little son could take organ lessons. And she agreed. And that was the start of a wonderful friendship of probably 30 years.
Bradley, would you please give us some background? What happened in your life that propelled you to where you are now?
Well, when I was 5 and Jay was 35, no. Actually, when I was a little boy, Jay used to play for my mom occasionally, and I think that's how I first got to learn Jay, because Jay was the piano whiz kid in town, and my mom used to sing on Annabelle Webb's show.
And what was your mom's name?
Maxine Greenwald. And that's how I got my start, too, because I would always go to Annabelle's house on Albion Avenue, 705 Albion Avenue, and my mom would sing every once in a while on her show, and I would sit under the card table and collect I was telling Jay this yesterday, I would collect the paper commercial copy that she would read and then toss, and I would make a little pile of it under the thing. And one day, she asked me if I wanted to sing, and my mom... I was 4. I think I was 4.
Had you sung before? Had
No.
anyone heard your voice?
I don't think so.
Had you been practicing?
No. At 4? Probably more than I practice now. But Annabelle asked me to sing, and my mom said she blanched because she didn't know what was going to happen. And since I had 4 very much older siblings, she wasn't sure what was going to come out of my mouth on the radio. And I did 'Twas the Night Before Christmas on Annabelle's show. And Annabelle asked me back, and I started singing. And Annabelle Webb convinced my mom to have me audition for a Civic Summer Theater production, Gypsy, I think, when I was 5. I was a newspaper boy.
And ladies and gentlemen, I would like to tell you that our very own Bradley Greenwald left Fairmont, and as humble as he is probably one of the biggest stars today on the Minneapolis-St. Paul scene in both theater and voice, both classically trained voice and in musical theater. We are thrilled to have these two guys here today. Now, Jay, would you tell us what's happening in New York and what are you up to these days?
I'm still running around like a fool, doing all kinds of playing for people. And I just, in fact, I don't know if you know who Kurt Mazur is.
Of course.
But his wife, Tomoka, is a friend of mine, and she just called the day before yesterday and is doing a recital. And her regular pianist is in Montreal, so I'm going over there on Monday.
Brad, what is one of the latest projects that you did in Minneapolis?
The last show I did in Minneapolis was A Year with Frog and Toad at the Children's Theater Company. And before that, 1776 at the Guthrie. and various performances with Theatre de la Jeune Lune, which is a French theater company in the city.
You know, there's another interesting story that Jason Enqquist has that I discovered earlier last summer when he was back in Fairmont at the Red Rock Center, helping to christen the new Steinway that they have there. Jay, what was your association with Benny Goodman?
Oh, I was his private secretary for a number of years, in the last years of his life, in fact.
And we're talking about the Benny Goodman, the great band leader.
Yep, the clarinet player, big band leader. He lived in Stamford, Connecticut, and through a friend, he called me up one day. I thought he was kidding. I said, he said, this is Benny Goodman. I said, oh, right. And it really was. And he invited me over and basically invited me to live in his house and become his personal secretary, which I did for 3 years.
And you also accompanied him on piano.
I ended up, yes, he didn't even know that I played piano at the time when he invited me over, actually.
We want to really thank Mr. Bradley Greenwald and Mr. Jason Enqquist for coming on our story, State of the Arts, tonight at the Fairmont Film Society.